Hey everybody, I'm Nick Nicholas. This is my son, Chris Nicholas. We're back with another podcast. I want to share some more information with you about how to build self-confidence, feel a deep sense of internal security so that you can learn to live a life of peace and calm in a world that is kind of chaotic, which I think all of us agree we're sort of living in right now. And so we're going to share some information with you to help you get your hands around that. And I'm actually going to show you, we talked a little bit in previous podcasts about the whole concept of human energy. And I'm going to show you a bit of a diagram so you can kind of understand how that works and how fear and love switch and change form based on what's going on in your life. Okay? So, Chris, you brought out a while ago that, the pain of the present greater than the fear of the change,
Fear of the
right?
change, right.
And we know what fear is. Fear is a question, am I going to be okay? Change is a risk. And so therefore, we fear because we don't know. It's part of the unknown. So if that's the case, and it is the case, we all experience that. In business, we make decisions that, well, I'm risk advertent. I'm not going to do that because what if this and what if that? And we wind up living in a what if, woulda, shoulda, coulda world. Mm-hmm. And that really doesn't take us to where we want to go. Once we learn how to manage that whole fear concept, it'll change the way we make our decisions. When that happens, we open doors that previously we didn't see and give us the opportunity to make decisions. Now, are those decisions always right? Or are they wrong? Well, I think we talked a little bit about that earlier, but let's talk about it again because I think it's critical. I submit to you, you've never made a good or a bad decision. You've only made a decision based on the information you've got right now.
And it either took me where I wanted to go or it didn't.
Exactly. And if it takes you where you want to go, you label it as a
good decision.
A good decision. If it takes you where you don't want to go, must be a bad decision. So if we get where we want to go, hey, all right, I made a great decision, pat myself on the back, have my little party and all of that. But if it doesn't go where I want to go, what then? How do we handle that? Well, we look at ourselves and say, my gosh, why didn't I see that? Am I that stupid? Really? And instantly enough, as soon as we say that, remember all those times in our life that somebody told us we were stupid. Mm-hmm. The bully, the parent who with the best of intentions trying to help us get better grades, why can't you be as good as Johnny, yada, yada, whatever. So we beat ourselves up. Mm-hmm. Here is a better way and a way to help us build self-confidence. We don't get to the place we want to go. So, okay, we have to take into consideration one thing really quick. If we made this decision 5 minutes ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 months ago, it doesn't make any difference. We know more at this moment about the situation than we did 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 weeks, whatever before. So when it doesn't go when we don't get what we want, instead of beating ourselves up and calling ourselves stupid and all that, say, okay, interesting. That decision did not take me where I wanted to go. What have I learned between then and now so that I can make a new decision at this moment based on all this new information and execute that?
Yeah, one time, and actually I didn't beat myself up. I had to plan a mission in Iraq. There was it actually was on a grid line on the map that the insurgents used to drop IEDs, and it was really wreaking a lot of havoc. So I had to plan out a mission to set up on that grid line and take out the insurgents. There was a pipeline ditch along the road, and so I planned for us to, far enough away, drop into the ditch, move down. That was the information I had. I made the best decision I could. Mm-hmm. We got to the place and found out that the ditch had caved in, dirt had fallen in, sand, everything, and there was no way for us to move. I had more information now I didn't take the time to beat myself up about it.
No.
We just stepped back to where we were safe, and we replanned and reset the mission.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're going to get more information, that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You make the decision on the best knowledge that you have, and
Mm-hmm.
then when it comes time down the road, you're going to have more knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to take that back to your personal relationship, you made a decision based on the information you had when you decided to the second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the information you had at that time, you felt that this is going to be a long-term thing.
That's right.
Now, 9 years later, you're seeing new information. So was it a good or a bad decision to get married the first time 9 years ago?
It was the best decision I could make with the information I had at the time.
Bingo. That is we've got to come to understand that. You did not get the outcome you wanted,
No, I did not.
but you did beat yourself up pretty good.
I did.
Why did I do that? I'm not good enough, big enough, smart enough, whatever the case, okay? So, I want to relate all this over to human energy that we
Okay.
talked about, or the spiritual energy that we were talking about, the fear and the love. As a matter of fact, I've drawn a design up here, if you will, or a diagram, and let me kind of explain. The green circle represents the human energy, the spiritual energy that we were born with.
The closed, isolated
The closed,
system.
isolated system. All right? Within that, I put a line right down the center, 50-50, meaning that on the left is the negative or the fear energy. On the right of that 50-50 line, you have the love energy. Now, that means we've got 100% to work with, right?
That's right.
In our dreams. In our dreams. And the reason I say that is because you remember I mentioned in a previous podcast that everything that happens in our life is recorded, all right, and has the emotional soundtrack. If it's a negative, it's going to affect the decision we make today. It's going to affect our level of confidence. And I'm going to bring this up right now because you and I have had this conversation. Because of the negative way your last relationship ended, would you say it has affected your maybe desire, interest, or willingness to go out and create a new relationship?
For a while, the answer to that question is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Based on my self-confidence of, lack of a better way of saying it, picking the right person.
Right.
I questioned my judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to a point, or the point that I am now, where I'm getting better at that. But my concern now is I don't want to upset the peace that I am experiencing right now.
So what is it you're resisting against? Risk.
Yes.
Risk. And the fear is, I will lose the peace I feel. Am I ready to go through that upheaval again?
Right.
Now, so let's say you take the risk and you have the upheaval. What now?
Now I either use the skills that I've learned to get back to that peace, or I find myself in that dark place again.
And what's the first thing you say to yourself when the relationship goes south?
I knew it was going to happen.
It was like, when's the other shoe going to drop, right?
Right.
But however, if instead of that you say, okay, again, I'm fearful because I'm going through this again, but I'm going to be okay.
Exactly.
I'm going to be okay. So therefore, you'll neutralize the fear.
Mm-hmm.
It'll open your eyes, because see, fear blinds, confuses, and paralyzes. So when a door slams, another door opens. Problem is that slamming door generates fear. Blinds, confuses, and
You don't see the other door.
you don't see the other door because it only opens a little way.
That's right. It doesn't fly right open. It
Right.
cracks.
So as soon as you say, I'm going to be okay. I can handle it. I've got the skill, the knowledge, the ability, and the strength. I can handle it. Now the blinders come off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to look at it and you say, well, yeah, now that I look at this, back when I made that first decision to get in this relationship, I didn't know then that this is how she looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do.
Right.
So therefore, it's not on me. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm okay. I'm going to handle this. I learned from this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we grow, is by learning from each relationship. But where do we get the self-confidence to do that? That's the important part.
A lot of it is from past experience.
Past experience plays a big role in what we do and the decisions that we make. We tried that back in 1963. It didn't work then. And here in 2020, why do you think it'll work? Oh, golly, I don't know. That was how many years ago?
Mm-hmm.
How far has medical science come? How far has everything come since then? May not have worked then, but right now it might be the best idea ever happened.
Right.
So, but we may not be willing to take the risk because of the experience from 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wouldn't we love to have 100% of that energy to work with every day?
Would love it.
We don't, though. Because you see, that's what this little corner is over here where I drew the red. On the red side, those are the negative events in your life that keep popping up every time they're triggered. So with the relationship, you go out there and say, wow, you know, there's a lady that I like what I see. She seems articulate, intelligent, etc. I think I'll try a relationship there. But that little voice in the back of your head immediately, you say relationship, bingo, goes right back here.
Mm-hmm.
Because the failure of the previous marriage is locked over here. These are things you've never let go. When I first went in to see this Special Forces counselor, after 3 little visits with him, I said, hey, I feel great. I don't need you anymore. He said, Sarge, sit down. You have to understand he was military too. Outranked me by a whole bunch. Sit down. Okay, so I sit down. He said, look around my floor. What do you see? I said, well, there's a rug, a trash can, and so forth. He says, no, you're not looking. I said, well, what am I missing? He said, when you walked in here, you had all these little balls of crap tied to your belt with a long string. Those are all representative past things that have happened to you. And you drag them into my office and dump them. He said, you ain't leaving here until we get rid of all that mess that you've created. The point he was making was, I had to let go of a lot of this. And we will talk later in another session about exactly how to cut that loose. But for right now, I want us to understand that those things affect our ability to have self-confidence right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because of these, as you said, I didn't have the faith in myself to do it. Why? Because you had all this negativity locked back there, and I don't know, 10, 15, 20% of your energy was in permanent fear form.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about building self-confidence, internal strength, we're talking about the faith that we talked about in a previous podcast, faith in ourselves, faith in those around us, and faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, immediately, and you've already said it, I didn't have any faith in my ability to make a good decision. So your confidence went down. So when you trigger these, now that line down the middle, let's say we wake up one morning 50-50. Oh, by the way, the little blue mark on the far side is the positive things that we have locked away, that are permanent.
Mm-hmm.
But when this is strong enough, we doubt those. Maybe I didn't deserve that. Maybe I didn't deserve that. And I'm going to use our situation, and it is quite personal to both of us, but I think it's going to make a point for the world. When your mother and I divorced, and I left to go in the Army, you were 4 years old. When I left, you felt like you were left alone. Because I'd spent a lot of time, you'd spent a lot of time, you and I bonded very strongly. When I left, you felt that I had betrayed you.
Mm-hmm.
I had left you. And that was locked over here. Now, you had the good times locked in from when, before I left. However, this overrode all of that. One of your biggest fears from then on, as you've shared with me many times, was being
Alone.
Being alone. And it all started back there.
1968.
1968, November 9th. Well, actually before November, because I went homeless and I didn't see you until the day I left to go. So what we're dealing with then, let's say that this is 25% or 20%, and that's 20%. So we wake up every morning, we say 50-50. It's not 50% of 100.
50% of 40.
50% of 80. 50. Okay,
80.
we got 80%.
No, you got 60 left.
Yeah, we got
An engineer can't even add.
Yeah, and my math skills are next to zero.
20%, 20%.
80 in the middle. 80. That makes
60.
100, right?
60.
80.
60.
Okay, yeah.
60.
20, 40, 60. Okay,
There you
yeah.
go. 60%.
Y'all can laugh at us out there. That's fine. We're up for it. So what happens is you wake up this morning, 50-50 of whatever energy you got. All right? And the clock radio wakes you up and your favorite song is playing. Positive or negative?
Positive.
Bingo. So all of a sudden I got this positive thought, positive feeling. Now what's going to happen is this 50% line is going to move this way.
Yep.
In other words, it is going to convert a portion of the negative energy. Now, this is a vacuum. You can't have a gray area. It's either one or the other. Bingo. That's the way it is.
Yep.
So when we're talking about building self-confidence, we've got to talk about the faith, our faith. How do we build that security and self-confidence? Number one, it's by increasing our faith in ourselves, our faith in those close to us, and our faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, for example, you've had your super duper day. So at the end of the day, you get ready to go to bed, you have converted, let's say that you now have, instead of 50% positive energy, you now have 70% positive energy and only 30% negative.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sleep tonight?
I sleep pretty good.
You're real good because you're feeling happy. You probably had pleasant dreams, the whole thing. But you just had the day from you know where. You come home. Now that line has changed, and now you're 65% negative, 35% positive. How are you going to sleep tonight?
I'm probably not going to sleep real well.
It's going to be a restless sleep. And you're going to wake up the next morning. See, your mind never stops. So it's going to noodle on that stuff all night. So you wake up tomorrow morning and I feel like I haven't been to bed yet. What's going on? Because what's happened is you've shifted that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what do we do with this to bring us into a positive light? Because for example, the more I can push the positive, convert the negative energy to positive, let's say I got 70%. If I'm 70% positive energy, what is my level of self-confidence?
Pretty high.
Really high.
Pretty high.
But now that's broken out in those three areas.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have positive thoughts about myself, or am I beating myself up? Do I have positive thoughts, positive feelings about those around me, or do I distrust them? I have positive or negative thoughts around my relationship with God. Do I feel comfortable with it, or do I feel uncomfortable with it? So this is going to be, all three of those play a role in this.
And this is a constant battle
Back and forth,
every day.
every second. Because it changes every time you have a thought. Every time you have a thought. And it was interesting, after I wrote the book, my editor, Paul D'Agostino, called me, and he said that his neighbor, who was a retired French physicist, had read the book because his daughter had given the book to him to read. Mm-hmm. And that they had talked about it, and he wanted to talk to me. He was curious about some of the things that were in it. So Paul set it up, and we went over to his house, sat there and had coffee, and his wife made a wonderful cake. It was wonderful. And the physicist and I talked for about 4 hours, I suspect. And I told him, he said, so share with me again your whole concept about thought, feeling, and emotion. I said, okay. You have a thought, negative or positive, and that triggers positive or negative feeling. Only 2 emotions, thousands of feelings are connected to one or the other. He said, well, let me tell you something that you're going to find interesting. He said, as a physicist, we have been able to prove that every time you have a thought, the brain actually emits a microscopic burst of energy, either positive or negative. Mm-hmm. So it's not just psychobabble, it's a real deal. And he said, so therefore we sat and talked about this, and it became very clear. If you want to control your life, if you want to live a positive life, maintain positive thoughts. Because every time you have a positive thought, you change the balance of the negative and positive energy. Mm-hmm. Therefore, either the emotion of fear or the emotion of love is controlling your life. Because every decision you make comes from one or the other. Mm-hmm. I had gotten so bad in 1981, that day that I crashed, I was all the way to that side. Now, we know energy can't be created nor destroyed, don't we?
That's right.
So, the most horrible, terrible person in the world, all this negative stuff, will still have 5% positive energy. The most horrible people you've ever known, if you want to name them, they had a 5% chance of doing something wonderful for mankind. But on the other side of the coin, you can be a Mother Teresa, and still there's a 5% chance you can do something horrendous. Mm-hmm. So the key is to keep yourself as balanced as possible. And it's all done by thought. So in some of my coaching sessions, people say, well, I'm going to give you an example. And this gentleman knows I'm going to share this, so he doesn't have a problem with it. I've got a client that is in a very stressful business. I started out doing business coaching with him. And he later, I did that before my near-death experience. Afterwards, we started getting into the life coaching side of it. So one day, we come into the meeting in his office, we went into his conference room, and he was just he was wiped out. He was frustrated, he didn't know where to go, he didn't know what to do, on and on and on. And so I was having trouble getting him to even connect with our communication. So I looked at him and I said, you're upset, I can see that. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you're thinking. So he started running out this list of negative thought. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. I said, can you share with me 1, maybe 2 times in your life an event that it just made you feel wonderful? You felt whole, you felt excited, you felt love, you felt all of that? Oh, that's easy, he said. I said, so what is it? He said, I'm French Canadian. I speak fluent French. And as a result of that, he said, I took my wife to France, and we didn't do the tourist stuff. We immersed ourselves in a population for 15 days. He said, we had a ball. Now, here's what's happening all the time he's telling me this. His face was like this when we started, all scrunched up and wrinkles and all that. As he started telling me this, you could just see it all fall away. You could just see it all fall away. He was smiling, he was laughing. I said, from now on, when you start to think negative, I want you to say Paris. To this day, he's doing that. And he said, I have learned to control my life. Now, we'll talk more about confidence as we go, but there's some other things we'll cover as well. So we'll wrap this one up by saying that it's important for us to understand our life is directed by our decisions, actions are determined by our emotions, and it is a shifting of our spiritual energy between positive and negative that drives our lives. Okay?
Absolutely.
Very good.